Well, hello there. Welcome to Beyond the Noise. Bill Gates and the UK have come up with a plan. And their plan is to dim the sun. There's funding that Bill Gates have for this type of research. About $60 million. For some people, they may say that this is science fiction. And I want to say to you that there is a fine line between science fiction and the supernatural. They look identical. Science fiction is with the involvement of man and the source of man, the money of man, the ideas of man, for the purpose of control. The supernatural, God's source, with the purpose of liberty. This is not a science fiction movie. The UK, their chemtrails plan, all of that is what Bill Gates is using, along with the UK Parliament. And from what it is understood that this legislation will pass. That's interesting. So what's the purpose? Why are they doing this? And they say that it's for climate change. And when you think about climate change, you got the sun, which we need the sun for food. We need the sun for ourselves to live on. But yet they want to block the sun. Now, also blocking the sun could be a way for farming. You can have the sun blocked, but that means you're not going to have a great harvest. And then the sun can be released and there is a harvest. They say that they were experiments at one time where they had a mirror, and I think it was in China, and the mirror would be with a satellite and it'll catch the sun, and the sun will be put into a certain part of the country, whereas it will have sunlight at night. Just weird kind of stuff. Science fiction. And so we're at a point right now, whereas the blocking of the sun, what is the deeper meaning behind it? Because they have to use the chemtrails, and in using the chemtrails, those chemtrails, in order for the sun to be blocked, they have to have some type of a metal. That metal could be mercury. And whatever that is, it will block the sun. So now in blocking the sun, the chemtrails will also affect the people. So now you're eliminating a problem, and at the same time, you're causing a problem. I just recently learned that mercury is related to autism, and a lot of kids who have autism have an overabundance of mercury in their bloodline. And so someone came up with the idea of figuring out how to give the proper foods to get rid of the mercury. And they saw with many of the kids that the autism was leaving. I met a lady this past weekend, and she was telling me that her and her son had came from this autism festival. And I'm looking at her son, and young kid and energetic, doing his thing. And I asked her, I said, why were you and your son at the autism festival? And she said, because my son has autism. That was my luck. Looking at the little kid. Your son has autism? I'm like, lady, no. I don't believe your son has autism. And I'm not sure that you believe. I know that's the diagnosis, but look at him. Look at how attentive he is. Look at his energy. I said, when it comes to autism, and for some reason, this has captivated me about autism. And I've talked to people that are in the industry of autism, and they said that how the kids that have autism, if they connect with you, they have amazing days. And I said, now, even though those kids have amazing days, it's because of the people. And that's also with our family or our families. And with the family, when you have love with that kid, it can cause the autism to not flare up. Because you can see that this kid is loved by the mother. She's doing everything that's important for her to do. But in that reality, guess what? It's not flaring up. So if it was Mercury and the Mercury is not there anymore, then that means then something happened to get rid of it for what was done. It could have been love, meaning that the immune system responded a certain way. It could be the vitamins, it could be the food, it could be almost anything that caused it, according to what we're finding. And so the kid shows that he is now speaking. She said it took her son almost 3 years before he started to talk. You couldn't tell. I mean, he had a crash course apparently of learning how to talk. So the point is that as you have these chemtrails, and the chemtrails are coming in and causing sickness with people, that's a possibility, because nothing is an exact science. Nothing is perfect. Just as we have certain types of vaccinations is not perfect. It's not an exact science. And so if it's not an exact science, that means that some people are going to have issues where others may not. So why are we causing a problem? Let's say we, I'm speaking of mankind, and how is this being promoted to where it's going to pass? And it's going to pass in England. It's Bill Gates. Usually when Bill Gates is doing something like this, he's doing it in India or he's doing it in Africa. Maybe he's overstayed his welcome in those places. There is that possibility. And so now he's in the UK. Now, he could have done it in America, but I want to say the reason it probably would not have worked in America is because of, you guessed it, the Donald. Bill Gates and that man are not seeing eye to eye. It's also, wait for it, RFK. He's really the culprit in this area. Because when you're talking about something like this, RFK will go to spitting those facts, man, and it's like that thing ain't moving nowhere, especially right now, in trying to put something like that in America. So Bill Gates got the funds. There's obvious controversy in this because many people are talking about it. You're talking about blocking the sun. This has so much of control within it. The rumor that's out there also over time is showing that you have not only this climate control, but this population decline. Which one will cause the population to decline? Will it be because of the sun? Or will it be because of the chemtrails? There's a challenge here. And it's interesting that they have this going on over there, as I'm saying. And so we're at a point right now, whereas we have to tap into a way to defeat the negativities of what's going on. We need more answers because the solution is going to be with the people. What the UK is trying to do, as we start having conversations, to say, give us some supporting documents on why this is important. Give us a better understanding of why this is needed, why you have to block the sun. You're speaking that it is for the purpose of climate control or because of too much sun. But to my understanding, the UK, London is there. And when you talk about London, remember those jackets? They call it the London fog. All right. So here you have that area of London that is having bad weather altogether, fog like Seattle, rainy, what's the purpose of blocking the sun? It doesn't add up. It's not something that we are seeing that works for us. And so these type of things has happened in the past. But what I'm learning is that it is the people, it is us that puts a stop to these type of things, not by marching, and that's fine if people want to do that, but it's through the conversation, speaking truth, overcoming the noise or the negativity. And as we do that, we are able to see results. Now, how I'm saying it, guess what? We have nothing to lose. The key is to staying positive, staying sharp, staying aggressive in this, pointing it out, exposing the problem, because we're in a new season where it is the time for the people, not the time for the politicians. Even though we've been depending on the politicians, even though we've got settled in the finances of the politicians, but even in being settled, their ways have been proven that it is not answers anymore. There's no more answers now. They don't have the proof of that anymore. That's why things that they're putting out in legislation, when people say no, it's shut down. When the people said no to many things of the Democratic side, it was shut down. Well, I'm saying for those on the Democratic side, when you are standing up for rights and we figure it out, it has to be figured out. It has to be righteous. It cannot be confusion, because the confusion is noise. When there's noise, there's no answers. And when there's no answers, we're going to have legislation, as they're putting out there in the UK, in their parliament, to put something like this in the skies. It's no longer saying you got to be kidding me. No. The kidding days is over. All this is serious. All this is a reality. And in this reality, as we see it, as we learn to call it out, we're going to see the results, whereas this type of stuff is not happening. All the negatives, I don't care what party it is. I don't care what country it is. I don't care what China is doing. I don't care what Israel is doing. I don't care what Hamas is doing. When we call it out and speak, and there's a certain group of people that has this type of authority according to what's written. We don't know who they are. You don't know who they are. It may be you, but here's the thing. We have to practice speaking right. Sometimes you might not talk right, but you know what you're talking about. Put that effort in. Because these things are happening right now. These things are going on right now. And as it is going on, we have favor to crush that type of sci-fi thinking. There's a fine line between the sci-fi and the supernatural. There's a fine line. There's a fine line between patience and procrastination. They look just alike. And there's also a fine line between arrogance, which is what we're seeing from the UK, and authority. Now we have to prove and see who has the authority. And I'm going to tell you, that's you. You don't have to go there to the legislation. All we got to do is see it, expose it, speak what's right, and be in anticipation of that reality. Some people may say it's the universe that's moving. Others may say it's God's angels that's moving. We're going to find out what it is in the wash as it comes through. But the reality is we're going to see the victory. We'll meet each other on the other side and sort that out. But we have to come together to have the victory over that type of madness, because we could be looking at certain parties, certain politicians to say, you need to solve that. And I'm going to tell you, they're not going to solve it, because they all barter, they interchange money, they do this and they do that. But I want to say the things that they've been doing is no longer working. So since it's not working, we got to get this ball moving by exposing the problem, by having good conversation, by speaking right. And it's not going to happen because you've gone to somebody's church. That's not happening anymore either. That's shutting down with the politicians. It has to be with us. It has to be with our kindness and our love. Because as we do this, if it is an issue with the sun, we have protection with our skin. We have protection with the blessing of peace. So that's not going to be our problem. And if it is a problem with the chemtrails for so many other people, it still won't be a problem for you, but it may be a problem for others. And who are those others? Those others that are not confident. Those others that are barely making it. Those others that are moving in fear. Because that's what this thing is doing. The conversation is going to open the door to fear. But even though it's opening the door to fear, we see another alternative to the fear, false evidence appearing real. That's what that fear is. But we have another side of that. And that other side is peace. And as we have that other side and we're understanding and we're communicating with one another from a peaceful place, not a religious place, but a peaceful place, and understanding that we have the victory with our emotions, with our enthusiasm, and calling the negative things out. I don't know what positive you can get out of that, putting chemtrails in the sky, blocking the sun. What kind of alloys are they putting in the chemtrails? What type of metals do they have there? What are our children breathing in? What are our seniors breathing in that's causing issues? And just because somebody has money and they want to put it out there, what kind of wild hair they have, speaking of Mr. Gates, that's giving him the confidence to want to do something like this? Is he some type of a mad investor? Can't call him a mad scientist, but a mad investor that's working with scientists and he causing them to be mad, but he's the one that has the authority? How do we deal with that? I just shared with you, there's a fine line between the science fiction, sci-fi, or the supernatural. And at some point, they both become a reality. Things that we see right now was at one time known as sci-fi. Because at one time, to be able to be on your phone or to have a computer, that was unheard of, to whereas you can look at your phone and see the person you want to talk to, FaceTime. That was impossible. That was sci-fi. But today, it's a reality. And it also works that way with the supernatural. What is in eternity. And when you think about eternity, there's no need for chemtrails. When you think about eternity, there's no need for autism and all the things that the chemtrails may cause. When you think about eternity, you're talking about harvests and everything is blooming. And that means that also nothing will die. So whatever that is in eternity, it shall also be in your presence, UK. It will be in your presence because of you, as it is in eternity, so shall it be in the UK. So shall it be in London. And your presence can cause the fog to leave, can cause the chemtrails to leave. So the millions of dollars that they're spending will be for naught, for naughting, for nothing at all. That's the value that we bring today. That's the value that we bring because we're learning to love. We're learning to bring peace. We're learning to flow in joy. That's a process. That's a practice. And it is that was going to crush that kind of mindset of chaos and confusion. We're victorious through this process. Yeah, it looks creepy. Come on. $60 million to send some chemicals into the sky. And we already seen, I don't care where you are, you've seen the chemtrails, you've seen the lines out there. And those lines at one time, it did show that it was working. To me, it showed that it was working because after it was in the sky, it got cloudy and then all of a sudden it started to rain. But the more that we start to recognize it and the more that we started to expose it, the more we began to see that at some point it wasn't in the sky anymore. They stopped putting them out there. Why did they stop? I believe because it wasn't working. Why did they start it again? Because they felt that you forgot to do what you're doing to cause it to not work. So how do we keep the game alive? How do we keep it going? Edifying, encouraging, patting others on the back, keeping them in a restored manner. See, right now, many people have said in my neck of the woods, the Gulf Coast of America, the greater New Orleans area, that there's going to be this great revival. And one thing I realize is that, there is a great revival, but nobody's talking about it. And that great revival is not for everybody. There's chaos that people are dealing with, and that's just life. That's just what it is. But there's others that are enjoying their life. They're not worried. They're not concerned. I remember that last summer, there was a Category 4 hurricane that came through the city of New Orleans and went to the North Shore bedroom community of that area. And I talked to a lot of people who said that the lights flickered, but it never went off. Now, we've been known to have our lights to go off for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But that was a phenomenon. We had a direct hit. We had tornadoes to come through, according to the meteorologists. You may have had some downed trees, but the lights, crazy, did not go out. There was some flooding, but the lights, the power was on and the lights was on. Usually we'll say, I got power, but my lights is out. See, that's the positive way to flow with this. We got some power, but the lights are out. But in this case, we had the power and we had the lights. So whatever that is, you stay positive through this process. It's not just the chemtrails. There's so many other areas that we have authority and we have the blessing. And our assignment with our kindness is to defeat the works and the confusion that's going on by the politician, by darkness, by those that are in agreement with things that makes no sense. And they can't describe why they're doing it. They can't say what the purpose is. They have the attitude of do as I say, not as I do. Well, we didn't have enough of that. I know I have. Give us a like, subscribe. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for the 100s that I see there on the screen. Thank you for coming to Beyond the Noise. Enjoy.